Happy fall incoming. Autumnal changes happening up here in northern Michigan. Welcome to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast. And it is that time of year where we all start dreaming of tropical places. As the leaves start to fall, the temperatures begin to plummet, especially up here in northern Michigan. We just went through a heat wave for about 10, 12 days of mid 80 degree weather, dry as a bone. Got in some good sailing and trying to wrap a few things up here. But this time of year for me always brings those thoughts of packing the boat, preparing for passage out in the ocean, en route to some tropical paradise, some adventure. But you have to be willing to take that leap. And that brings me to my wonderful guest that I had sit down and take a few minutes of her valuable time to chat with me about not only the social media and sharing aspect of the sailing community and the sailing world, but also getting into the nitty-gritty of exactly how many grand adventures this young lady has taken. And we have none other than Hannah Sailing from the Hannah Sailing channels coming on the show. It was really kind of odd this morning. I think it was at about 4 or 5 a.m. And I kind of wake up and I roll over and I was like checking something on my phone. And, just out of habit, I opened up the old Instagram app and I see another post from Hannah Sailing or Hannah Sailing, corrected. And essentially, I was like, oh man, wasn't I supposed to do a podcast with her at some point? And I think I had reached out a few times, and this girl travels all over the world now. So very, very followed and viewed person when it comes to sailing on social media, mostly TikTok, Instagram, and now even YouTube. Well, I just figured, hey, I might as well, I'm not bothering anybody just by asking. So I hit her up with another message, a little DM, and boom, immediately got a reply back. And she said, well, can we do it today? I just got back from Turkey. And hey, I am right there in it to win it. Let's do this. And so, yeah, that's who we have on the show. We've got Hannah, and I've been following her sort of sailing adventures for years now, first discovering just coming across a TikTok of her essentially changing her life, making a bold decision to go start working on boats, gaining experience en route to being able to get her own boat and start sailing the world on her own terms. And that's exactly what she's doing. It was really quite amazing to talk to her and sort of share our experiences and both highs and lows, the good, the bad, and what kind of keeps pushing us forward. So the first half of the episode, we talk a lot about what it is to sort of share all this stuff out into the public, what's worked, what doesn't work, and sort of those experiences. And then I really wanted to just hear about sailing and how she was finding all this stuff, crossing oceans, all the people she meets, all that sort of stuff. So that's what we just kind of dive into for the second half. But before I start the show, like I always say, if you want to help support this podcast, all the content that we're pushing out here at Sailing into Oblivion, look in the links in the description of this episode. You'll see stuff for Patreon, this wonderful group of people that help keep this show going, and then also one-time donations. We got all the merch, we got the shirts, the books, the children's books, all that sort of stuff. And then sailingintooblivion.com for any information about speaking events, whether or not you want to spice up your next event with a little salty sailing story. Well, I am your man. And then as well, we have the coaching and all that sort of stuff. So check all that out. Definitely throwing links in the description for Hannah Sailing, both TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. I am almost 100% sure anybody that listens to this probably already is very well aware of the adventures of Hannah. And yeah, it is super cool to finally sit down and talk to her. I was a little nervous because I'm a fan, but I think we had a really, really nice conversation, and it was a lot of fun. So hopefully we'll be able to do it again sometime in the future. Without further ado, here is Hannah.
Thank you for having
Excellent.
me. Yeah, I'm
Hey,
excited.
no, for sure. I've been secretly a fan for quite some time, actually, and I think I think it was I can't remember what year it was that I started posting stuff onto TikTok from all this B-roll that I had from the trip around the world. It was my
Hmm.
younger cousin who actually he was like, "Hey, those things would work out really good on TikTok," and I didn't even know what it was at that point. And then it kind of picked up some steam and everything, and that sort of ushered me a little bit into that realm of sort of sharing the sailing experience, amongst all the different like YouTube and Instagram and all that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
your story definitely caught fire very quickly, and has continued to just grow and grow, and now you're literally jet setting around the world. You just got back from Turkey, right?
Yeah, I did. It was really great. It was for a sailing race trip, but yeah, it was one of the more luxurious type of trips I've done.
I can only imagine. I've only been to Istanbul one time many years ago. I sailed on a delivery trip from the Caribbean, and we hit a few spots in the Med, but we ended up delivering the boat to Marmaris, Turkey, down on the sort of southwest coast. But before I took off to fly home, they let me go and explore Istanbul for a couple of days. Did you got
Oh,
into that
cool.
city a bit?
Yeah, yeah. Istanbul is actually the only place that we visited, but it was really, really amazing city, and I absolutely loved it. I actually wish I could have stayed longer and explored more of it, but it was wonderful.
Well, I had 2 nights there, and the first day I kind of get there, and I'm just walking around absolutely amazed. I mean, I will never forget the one the most impactful thing I think when I first got there. I was just walking the streets, and I think I had turned the corner, and I sort of had the blue mosque in sight, which is, if you've never seen it in a picture, check it out. But if you see it in real life, it's breathtaking. But it was almost at the precise moment that all of a sudden the whole city sort of goes quiet and the prayer music started.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just sort of thinking about it right now. But you
Yeah,
just knew you're in a totally different place. That place is absolutely amazing.
yeah, it was super special. I now I want to go back just thinking about it.
Well, I was very fortunate though, because I was so overwhelmed when I first got there. And again, this is just me. I think I was in my late 20s or something like that, and I essentially made the choice the next day because I had such little time. I went and actually got a private guide to take me around, and I was so glad I did that because it's such a huge city. Um,
Yeah.
you know, there's so much to see, like you're saying, that it's you almost need like a pro to take you around and really show you the ins and outs. Did you have friends or guides or anything?
Yeah, we went with a group of other sailors, and we had a guide as well who was amazing. She was really, really, really knowledgeable about the history of the city and just every aspect of it. And you could just tell how much she loved being from there, and she loved her like culture. So it was really special to have someone like that to show us around. The locals were all amazing and friendly and kind, and the food was incredible, and the views of the city streets and the history. We went into the Roman aqueducts as well, which was
Oh wow.
unbelievable. It's just, yeah, absolutely insane.
What was like if you had to pick one highlight from that city, what would it be?
um wow, that's, yeah, I mean,
I know it's kind of tough, right?
yeah, it's tough. Um I would say probably, yeah, just the incredible, like the streets and the architecture and the like the mosques and the buildings and just the history, the really, really, I'm really kind of a history nerd in a lot of ways, and so just seeing all these really old like maps and buildings and everything so well preserved, that's always really special for me to see.
Well, and I think too, on that note, like as Americans, our history is so short
Yeah.
lived compared to a place like
Exactly.
Istanbul that used to be Constantinople, that's been like on the crossroads of the East and West for millennia. And yeah, I mean, you can be walking past
Yeah.
structures that are thousands of years old, and I don't know, it sets
Yeah.
my mind ablaze because I've always loved that, like the
Yeah.
Hellenistic period and everything way, way, way back. That it's hard to imagine anything even going on back then. For us, it's like
Yeah.
1776. That was when our nation
Yeah.
got formed,
No,
right?
exactly. I always think about that when I'm looking at these things and when I hear how old it is and I think 1776 and I'm like, wow, it's just like so far before, like for so far beyond that. And I think about what was going on here in America during that time and like who was here where I'm from and then who was
Yeah.
who was there like living that life and what was going on and I kind of try and put myself in the past and I love doing that because I kind of like to fantasize a lot just in my head and like daydreaming kind of and so it's like part of it, it's I think it's really fun to
Well,
be
do
in
you think?
history.
Yeah, I mean, do you think if you were to put yourself back in like sort of the Greek times, or back in that era, would you have found the ocean? Would you have found the sea?
Oh, 100%. Like I'm a water creature. Like I need to be in the water like every day. I need it in some way or another. The ocean just like calls to me. It's very powerful kind of feeling, honestly. That's like I've always had.
It
So yeah.
almost, in a lot of ways, for me, it kind of, if I'm too far away from it for too long, I can definitely feel it in my mood. I'm sort of just like, oh, something's not
Same.
right. And
No,
then,
same.
yeah, you
Even
see that
before I was
water.
like sailing, before I discovered this, kind of confidence and like drive in myself to be able to pursue that feeling and to like really understand like what I needed in that. I always I can look back at moments where I knew it was there and it was always there that I just needed to be closer to the ocean. Like there are times when I visited, like I remember when I was younger, I visited New York City with my family and I must have been like 15 years old, 14, 15 years old. And um, something about like being in that city stressed me out so much. The
Ugh.
buildings, the high buildings, I was extremely, extremely stressed. And I felt this like anxious, like kind of, I don't know, it was just like this really anxious feeling that I needed to be like space or need to be near the water. And I kind of like opened up like the maps. I found like a map and I found a direction of like a way to walk to get to the nearest body of water that I saw, which was like I can't even remember what it
Hudson
was.
River,
Hudson
maybe, or
River.
something.
Yes,
Yeah.
Hudson River. And I was like, okay, just walk towards there. And I walked and I just walked and walked and walked. And I like left my family and I just like got to the river and I just like sat there and I looked at the boats and I was like, oh my God. And I just felt this like instant relief. And that was one of the like first moments I knew I was like, oh yeah, this is my life. And this is like it's just where I belong. It's just like I could not. I was just at that moment. I was like, I cannot live in a city. I could never live in New York City. And I was seeing all these like millions of people living in this city. Like, how are you doing this? But I realized like not everyone just thinks the same way as me. But a lot of people can live that way and like to live that way. But I just could not. But it's just gotten deeper and deeper since then, where it's like to the point where I'm like, it's not even enough to be near the ocean. Like I need to be on the
Be
ocean.
on
I
it.
need to
Yeah.
be on it. I need to
Surrounded.
be around, wake up, literally floating. And I was like,
Well,
oh, that's possible. When I realized, obviously started sailing and realized that that was a possibility and that was a real life that people were living. I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely 100% going to just be my whole life from now on. Like that's me.
well, it is. It's amazing how sailing can really just change the trajectory of your life from almost the get go. I mean, I didn't start sailing until I was about 18 years old, but quite literally, the moment I got on a boat and it was a small little catamaran by myself, I was absolutely 100% hooked, and I knew that that was the direction I was going to go. And the passion just grew and grew and grew. And,
Yeah.
for the better part of 2 decades now, it has been not only my passion, but it's also been my career, and it's taken me literally all over the world. And it's
Yeah.
such a wonderful, I think, way to commune not only with Mother Nature and just be on the ocean and live that experience, but it's also, I think, a really great tool for learning about your own capabilities, your own strengths, your weaknesses, and also just dealing
100%.
with the hardships of life. I do a lot of coaching with people, and recently a lot of the calls have been sort of centered around that whole idea of like, boy, there's you have your suffering in life and you have your joy, and it seems like these days everybody's trying to steer clear from the suffering and just get the joy. But
Hmm.
if you really want to feel true joy, you almost need to have a little bit of that suffering
Yeah.
to amplify. And I was looking at one of your, I think it was just one of the Instagram posts, but it kind of was a short little clip about the realities of what it's like to live aboard a boat. And you went through like, covering yourself in oil, trying to fix broken things, scraping the
Hmm.
bottom of the hull. And I think that's one of the really nice parts about the experience that you share, is that it's not all the romanticized like beaches and beautiful everything. It's sort of like, no, you got to work if you're actually going to do this.
Yeah.
There's a
Well,
reality
yeah.
to it.
I definitely try and be real with my followers and the people, because I know like the influence and the impact that a lot of like these videos and these things can have on people. And so it's just, I try and be like as real as possible, because I don't ever want to steer someone into an idea that's romanticized and they're not fully prepared for like what it could potentially really be like. And I think a lot of the reason I started sharing on social media was because I was a social media manager for years before I ever had my own social media presence. I was living here in LA. I was working at this plastic surgery center as their social media manager, and they did amazing work for women with breast cancer, but they also did other kinds of work for, breast reconstruction, for breast reduction, um, for facelifts, and they did Botox and fillers, and it was an all encompassing kind of um center where they did all of that. It was in Beverly Hills, so it was in the like mecca of plastic surgery, and it was something that I went into because my mom had breast cancer, and this doctor changed her life with her reconstruction surgery and also just saved her life. And I wanted to make I wanted to work for her because I wanted they didn't have a social media presence, and I wanted her other women with breast cancer to know this was an option, because it seemed like no one actually knew that this type of reconstruction was an option. And I wanted to like help them, spread the word in that way.
Yeah.
But because I was doing that and I was proud of the work I was doing, my job also included the social media behind, like, there was all sorts of things of like the perfect body and the perfect body image. And I felt a lot of toxicity in the
Mm.
space of plastic surgery and like beauty standards and social media, and what people were sharing on social media. And then you get into the place of like, because of plastic surgery, obviously it goes with all the celebrities and like the Kardashians and the um
Yeah.
and not just them, but like everyone. And I now can see how widespread it is, and it's just like sad to me because I just don't align with that at all. Like I would never get work done. I think natural beauty is amazing, and people should just be happy and confident with who they are, because that's not what life is about. It's not what happiness is about. It's not about chasing some fake beauty standard. And so for me, I wanted to kind of be like a genuine and real presence online that I felt that I wasn't seeing. I was like, it all feels fake. And we need if we keep letting the people on social media, if we keep giving voice, because everyone would say they didn't want to share because that's not them, that doesn't align. But it's like, if
Yeah.
we're more giving the voice to the people that we don't align with or that we don't agree with, because they're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're going to be louder and louder and louder, when the people who have maybe something to say that's a little more, along the
Genuine.
path that genuine, but that would align with people who want to see that, because they're going to be forced to watch content from other, it's just we needed more, I
That
felt it needed more diversity in that way. And on TikTok at that time, I obviously was introduced to it at a really early stage, because I have a young brother who's 13 years younger than me, and he was like, "You should do TikTok." And so
Yep.
yeah, he was like, "Hannah, do you know TikTok?" And I was like, "Oh, that Kesha song." And then he was like, "No." And I downloaded TikTok. I was watching, and I loved it. I felt, oh my God, real people sharing real stories like this is incredible. This is really what I want from social media. And I just connected right away to TikTok, because I
Yeah.
felt I was getting inspired by real people doing real things. And so that's when I made then I was doing TikTok also for my job.
For
And
your
then I
job, yeah.
started to make my own videos, because once I left my job to pursue sailing, I decided that, yeah, so I left my job to pursue sailing, and I wanted to get my own clients for social media management. And then I created my own videos to show people the strategy behind building a page. Obviously, it blew up to an extent that I wasn't fully aware that it would, or prepared that it would, but I'm
Yeah.
happy that it did. So yeah, that's
Well, that is such an interesting take on that idea of, well, the people who are just trying to share the truth and the reality and all that. We almost have like a duty to kind of battle against sort of the fake and the filtered and
yeah,
all that other stuff. And because I work with a few people who have very, the beginnings of their like YouTube channels or anything like that. And I, by any means, don't have anything huge, but it's one of those things where I'm always looking for any sort of angle to say, just keep posting your stuff. Don't worry about the comments. Don't worry about this, that, and the other thing. If you're
yeah,
having fun with it and you like sharing it, because
yeah,
these are just people who have started sailing and they want to share their experience on their boat and everything. And
yeah,
that's a really good take on it. Thank you for
yeah.
that. That's cool.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I liked yours, because your stuff in the start is like it's the same. It's like you're just sharing. It's like raw footage and this of
Oh yeah,
like these
all raw.
insane trips that you're doing. Yeah, and it's really cool stuff. So we like thought it was really cool, what you were doing and stuff. And that the also, yeah, about the comments things, like you get all sorts of comments from all sorts of people. And I think one reason that I've been able to continue to post and been able to
Mhm.
continue to share my story in like a genuine and real way is that I'm confident and sure in like my story and what I'm saying. And I have so many incredible connections and friendships from online and not online, that those are the opinions that like matter to me most. And so
Yeah.
I've never actually cared about comments, negative comments. I love, I mean, I get like so many incredible comments, but when you get like a few here and there that are negative, it just actually doesn't phase me, which I feel really lucky.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's a
honestly
talent. That's a
I
skill
couldn't care
set.
less. And so that's the thing, is that I think a lot of people just can't get past that. Whereas for me, I don't even read it sometimes. But if I did, I don't care. I don't let it affect me. Like I don't even remember what they said, because to me, that's just
Right,
some
right.
stranger, someone who is commenting on someone's life who's actually doing something, when you're
Uh-huh.
like sitting behind your computer and you have the time in your life to like comment something negative on a stranger on the internet. Like no one I care about in my entire life would take the time out of their day to comment something negative on someone's page. I would never do that. Like no matter
Yeah.
who or what. Like so that's a specific type of person who's going to do that. And there's a lot of people in this world, like good, bad, um, you know, whatever. Everyone has their own opinions, and not everyone's opinion is going to align with you, and not everyone's going to understand why you want to sail across oceans, because most people are like, that's freaking
It's,
scary
it's
and weird.
scary. It's
Yeah.
boring. What the heck are you
Yeah.
even thinking? Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's
exactly.
interesting. Because when uh, I think I can't remember when it was, but I had Holly Martin, Wind Hippie.
Yeah.
So I had her on the show months ago, and prior to that podcast of us sitting down, I had long since foregone ever reading comments. Like I just didn't do it. If randomly something came up and I looked at them and I might answer something, but I was like, I'm not even gonna look because it would stick with me. I wasn't like Teflon when it came to that stuff, and
Mm,
and then I listened to her sort of explanation. She was like, it was pretty difficult in the beginning. She said, I can still remember some really mean comments that were, about like your physical appearance, things like this.
mm.
And then slowly but surely, she just had so much encouragement from 99% of the comments that,
Yeah.
to this day, she goes and reads all of them. She goes and responds to most. Like it's
Yeah.
incredible. And so I
I think that's a
attribute,
good point. Yeah. The the
yeah, and
the the, the overwhelming support far beats like
oh yeah,
the negative. And I think that that's what's hard though about people who when you're first starting is like you have to build to that point when you
yes,
have but then once like one video or one thing clicks and then you start getting the right people there watching, then it's like an overwhelming amount of support that it just completely negates all the negativity because it's a yeah. So
and I think it is kind of a skill set that you have to develop where you can
yeah.
just glance right over the negative, and I much like you, I sort of. I imagine if I have something that upsets me that I see, I just imagine I'm like, okay, this is kind of a sad person sitting behind a
Yeah.
screen
Oh
all
yeah.
alone,
I
and
feel a little
they're
bad for them. I'm like, wow, that's what
yeah,
your life is like to spread negativity when because it's the thing is like I've my honestly one of the things in life like that makes me most happy ever is making people happy, making people smile. Like when I see like n- when I do that for my friends and that's like something that I really 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 love and I can't imagine someone going through their whole life with the opposite kind of feeling. Like that's really sad. And it's
yeah. You
just
almost want to be like, "Are you okay? Do you
yeah,
need?
it's
Can
like
we talk?"
like you'll be fine. Like just go find happiness. Like um,
Go out and do something. Well, and that's a
yeah,
big
touch
thing that
grass.
I end up talking to a lot of people about, and in a lot of the presentations and stuff that I do, a lot of it is based around like, you know what, you just got to get up and go. You got to stop saying someday. You got to grab a pen and a piece of paper and
Yeah,
start writing down some goals.
yeah,
Figure out what it is you want to go for, and then take those first steps.
yeah,
And I think again, that's one of the biggest things that I think your story from the beginning to now has really, I don't know, I think it just rung a tune with so many people because it's very relatable. Everybody goes through those situations where like,
right.
this is just not how life is supposed to be. I want it to be
Yeah,
better. And I think via sharing your story so honestly and openly, it's been incredible because you've become an ambassador, not only for sailing, because anybody that's pushing the fact that sailing is cool and gets more people involved in it is an okay person in my book. I love that, but also that idea of like this life is yours. You can go
yeah,
out. You just got to be willing to take those steps and go for it.
yeah, exactly.
So it is. But on the same side of that, as an ambassador, as someone who has such a large following, do you ever feel a bit of pressure to, I don't know, either put out more content or do crazier adventures or anything like that? Do you ever feel like a little overwhelmed by how many eyeballs sort of you have on you?
Yeah, for sure. Like it definitely doesn't make me feel pressured to do more adventures, but it makes me feel less more weary to share them sometimes like when things go wrong or but even though I know and then I share when things go wrong as well, but I think like the biggest mental block for me with sharing content so much has just been um the fact that making money from social media is quite hard, and it's a full-time job. It's a lot of work, and it's been hard to get to a point where it's like fully sustainable for me, even with as many followers as I have, because I don't post so much,
Mhm.
because I have this mental block of me being my business. And I feel like I don't know if I've just been in this place where I'm like, oh, to have do I want to have it my life be completely one where, even though the social media directly contributes to me being able to sail around the world, it's hard for me to think of myself as my brand and my business, because there's going to be days when you don't feel like filming. And I think I've realized now, as well as a captain of my own boat, is that it is really hard to do all of the work that goes into running the entire ship, and then at the same time think about setting up the camera and camera angles and then
Uh-huh.
filming it and then talking
Yeah.
about it. Because I just did my first trip to Catalina. It was an incredible trip. It was such a great story, but I was working my butt off to make it happen that I basically forgot to film the whole thing, which is like great, because it could have been a really, really, really good YouTube video.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh, but I didn't film it. But I can't beat myself up about it, because then also, in a way, I'm really glad that I had that for myself. But it was a whole year of boat work that that accumulated to this one trip, you know, that I
And you want to
didn't
share that?
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to share. I didn't really document. I've documented the whole entire process of rebuilding the boat, or refitting the boat, but I didn't really document this one trip that I'm like, I don't know if when's the next chance I'm gonna have to do that. And also, it was a really special moment with like three of my closest friends in the world, and so it would have been. But I also, yeah, I'm happy I have that moment with me. And I have also I'm sitting on hundreds and hundreds of hours of content that I haven't posted. So
Right, right.
I think the editing gets overwhelming. I don't really care about a lot about the sharing with people, because it's been so well received, that I know that it'll, but I do think that, once you're not posting, also people forget about you. And it's like, it's on social media, it's moving so quickly that you need to be in front of people's face all the time to be successful. And sometimes that doesn't completely align with my personality, because I like to be a little bit private or in
Yeah,
my
you got
life.
to
But
have
then,
those
yeah,
moments every once in
yeah,
a while. And, I sort of wrestled with that quite a bit. After I did the trip around the world, and I had zero social media presence on any of that stuff. But
yeah,
then I started the podcast, but then I would go out and do a trip that would take like 4 months.
right.
And I would completely disappear because all I had was a little Garmin InReach. And
Mm,
I did that off and on, and there was always a rebuilding process as things
yeah,
started to gather steam, and then all of a sudden disappear. Where'd Jerome go for 3 months? He's out
yeah.
sailing. I
They're
was
like, oh,
generating.
you, I remember you.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly. And now though, I am wrestling with the idea because I'm gonna try and dump the boat in this winter for an out and back across the Atlantic, and it's mostly just to get some more solo sailing in. But a side project is to create a whole lot of like reference and instructional sort of solo sailing videos. And
Yeah.
I'm wrestling with the idea, and I've been wrestling with it for months now, of like, do I get Starlink and be able to upload some of this stuff in real time, or do I just
Yeah.
forego that and keep that connection with Mother Nature, with the ocean,
Mm,
totally unsevered, and then
yeah.
just return to land and,
I
carpet
don't know.
bomb the internet?
I get that conflict in your mind, but I think if I were gonna start sailing full time on a boat of my own, like crossing oceans, and I would definitely get Starlink for safety type of reasons,
Mm-hmm.
and also, yeah, being able to stay connected. But then you can turn it off. Like when I was on Delos, and we sailed across the Pacific together, we had Starlink, but it wasn't on the whole time, and it didn't take away from the connection to the ocean and like to the experience. Being able to stay connected with like loved ones, but it was also, you still did feel disconnected because you could turn it off. You could be like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to be turning off the Starlink to save power for a week, talk to you in a week, like, or talk to you in 3 days. And then you have those 3 days to like, you know, be alone. But
Get
yeah, I
back
think,
into it.
yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Well,
for
and
sure. Yeah.
it was kind of interesting because my only experience with Starlink was we were doing I was on the Ocean Research Project vessel with Matt Rutherford, and essentially we went out for a month into the Atlantic, but it was a science expedition through Woods Hole, and the whole time we had Starlink going 100%. We had like the 1 terabyte plan because they had a bunch of scientists who had to stay plugged in, and we were doing
Yeah.
these autonomous vehicles and stuff. And I mean, you just never, it was like being on land. You always had your phone with you.
Yeah.
Anything got boring, you just flip that sucker open. Plus, I was trying to upload stuff for their Instagram and mine.
Mhm.
All that sort of stuff was going on. And I had never felt more disconnected from the ocean than I did on
Oh,
that trip. And
interesting. Yeah.
when I came back, I was like, the last thing I would ever want to do is bring the devil aboard ever again. And it's one of those where I'm gonna definitely have to go back and forth. But a lot of people reached out and said, well, Jerome, you realize that if you get Starlink, you're not gonna have it on all the time on Mighty
Yeah.
Sparrow because, one, I don't have the power resources.
Exactly.
Two,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get the 1 terabyte plan. It'll be for like uploads once a week or something. And,
Yeah.
so we're trying to figure that out. But
You'll
can
find
we?
clarity in that,
I
I'm
think
sure.
I think so. And it's only going to be a little 2-month trip. And essentially, I know something. I'm trying to cook something up bigger and more adventurous for the following winter, and that'll be when that decision really needs to be made. So if I disconnect for 2 months or whatever, and plus with this trip, I kind of want to stop in the Cape Verde Islands because I've only sailed past them a bunch of times, and I think they would be an interesting little spot to check out. So
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
love to sort of see, but to sort of switch gears a little from the whole like social media aspect of sailing and everything like that, I'm going to ask you to brag a little bit here. And because there's so much content out there of different trips that you've been on.
Yeah.
Can you tell me like which oceans you've crossed and what are some of the big trips that you've done? Like,
Yeah.
list them out.
I will list them out then. So I started by crewing on a boat. Well, first thing I did was volunteering with a friend of a friend to help take their boat down from near Santa Barbara down to Marina del Rey. So locally where I was trying to find, opportunities to sail, putting the word out there, just getting the word out that this was this was what was going to happen. At that point, I was looking for a boat of my own. So that was kind of the direction I was going. But then I was like also thinking, I really don't know much about
Yeah, I should
sailing.
get some experience
I need
from
really
people
more
who do
experience.
this.
Yeah. And so I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to really like this. I mean, I know I'm drawn to it very deeply, but I don't know for sure. So yeah, I did that trip, loved it. And then found another crew position in Puerto Rico where we were going to take the boat from Puerto Rico to St. Thomas, St. Martin, and then Grenada.
Oh, nice.
I sailed that boat to St. Martin and St. Thomas and then St. Martin. And that was my first, I was on that boat for like about 2 months. That was my first overnight passage. The timing all was like messed up. So I went to St. Martin. Also, I really, really didn't like the captain. He was like super bizarre. So that's the cool thing about being crew. You could just get off if you have a really
just hop off.
Yeah, you can hop off if you have a really drunken, scary captain who's knocking on your door in the middle of the night. I'm like, I'm out of here. So
yeah,
yeah, not fun. But then, so after that, I was like, okay, now I have to be really, really choosy and careful about what boats I get on and like what who I'm gonna sail with. And then about 2 weeks later, I saw a crew call from the channel Untied. on this boat called Elixir, a Swan 37, and it was a um, group of people in their, 20s, mid 20s, sailing around the world. And this guy, Max, who's one of my closest friends now, he's sailed the boat. He rebuilt the boat in the UK and had sailed it across the Atlantic and was circumnavigating. And he was in Grenada and he was like, oh, looking for crew. And we followed each other on TikTok. And at that point, we were some of the only, including you, we were like some of the only sailors on TikTok. No one was posting
Hmm.
their sailing content. So we knew of each other and he was like, absolutely, come. We're sailing. We're sailing from Grenada to Curacao and then Colombia. So across the Caribbean
Wow.
Ocean. And I was like, at that point, I was like, what? Can you do that? Like, it's about to be hurricane season. Like, you can keep going. Like, this is amazing. So I was like, absolutely. Got on that boat, sailed with them to Curacao, Colombia. And then we got along so well. And we had a bunch of different crewmates come, all in their 20s, all travelers and sailors, and just became all best friends. And then sailed from Colombia to Panama, spent some time in Bocas del Toro, San Blas, and then we went through the Panama Canal to the Pacific
Nice.
side of Panama, and then just up a little bit in the Pacific side of Panama, and then so I was on that boat for about 9 months, almost
Oh
10 months.
wow.
Yeah, it was a
Nice.
long
Okay.
time because we were in Colombia for a while. We just really liked, South America, Central America. It was
Well, and
amazing.
what type of boat was that?
Swan 37,
Swan
nineteen
37. Oh,
seventy. Yeah.
that is going to give you such good experience,
Oh my
like an
God.
old monohull like that. Yeah.
I learned so much. And Max is an insanely, insanely good sailor. I just got, and we were, bare bones on that boat. We didn't have a water maker. Um, we didn't have any of the luxuries. We had limited
Yeah.
solar and power. So we really had the power to run the refrigerator, charge our phones, and we had a depth sounder and a compass. Like we didn't have any other instruments. So I learned how to
Nice.
sail. Oh, we had a wind vane. So yeah, I really, really learned how to sail. I felt so confident after that trip. And then I met some other sailors during that time, so many other sailors that including Delos, including like other YouTube channels, including all these different people that I just felt this insane connection with. And then I met a friend of Max who asked me if I wanted to do a delivery across the Atlantic from Antigua to the Azores, Spain, and then the UK. And I just said,
Nice.
absolutely, I want to do that. And it was, at that point, I had enough experience that I was, offered it as a job
A
position,
job,
delivery
yeah.
crew. So
Ooh,
yeah,
nice.
woo,
That's
man,
always a good
moving up.
feeling when people
Yeah.
will pay you to hop on their boat and
Yeah,
sail it.
exactly. Oh yeah, that was a great feeling. And then and so then got on that was only like about like a few weeks after I got off Elixir, I went straight to Antigua and I met a girl. I put a crew call out to my followers and I met this girl, Taylor, who is now one of my closest friends. We bonded so much during this trip, and she actually has her own 25-foot sailboat now as well in Chicago. Um, and so we went to Antigua, we sailed to the Azores, and then spent a couple weeks sailing around the Azores, and then to Spain. We had a hired skipper who actually got kicked out of the Azores because he lied about having a visa for Europe, and he also he snuck alcohol on board, got insanely drunk in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. He was useless. It was insane. So
Oh,
I
I
know,
think I
yeah,
remember seeing like a short post about that, and I was like,
yeah,
"Oh,
I did.
well," because in that situation, it's sort of like, what are you gonna do? It's not
Oh
like you
yeah.
can just pull over and be like, "All right, get out of here."
I know the owner of the boat was also on board, and because he doesn't feel confident enough in his sailing ability, so he wanted to hire people, and as
Uh,
he should. But he was a gem of a person. He was like a retired firefighter. He was a adventurous person, just so kind, so caring, so thoughtful. and he was mortified that this happened, because
Yeah.
he was like, these girls put their lives in my hands, and like, this is who I hired, and
This
he
freaking
was like,
psycho.
yeah, he was thinking about locking. He was like, I mean, maybe I'll lock him in the room, and we were like, we basically just sorted it out where we went on watches where in groups of two, and Taylor and I did watches together, and they did
Uh-huh.
watches together, so we kind of didn't have to cross paths too much with him, and um
Wow.
and
Oh.
we just went on sailing, and then we get to the Azores, and surprisingly, they're like, um you know why the police came to the boat after we checked in,
Yeah.
why we're here. And I was like, what? I don't know why you're here. Why are you here? This is terrifying. And then he was like, no, you. And he like pointed to him, and and he was like, you cannot leave the boat. Do not leave this boat under any circumstances. Do not leave this marina. He even asked me, he's like, Hannah, please take this money. Like, go get me some rum. I need it. please.
Oh my gosh, she's
And
probably
like,
having withdrawals. Yeah.
dude, he was freaking out. And then
Oh.
fine. And then they were going to make us leave with him and directly sail to the UK. And we were
Ugh.
like, please, you
No.
can't do that. Like, it's a danger to us. We can't. But luckily, they arranged it so that he could fly out. He was from South Africa. He could fly out from the Azores directly home. So we didn't have to keep him on board. And then we were able to sail around the Azores with the three of us. And after that, everything went great, because at
I'll
that
bet,
point,
right?
I was like, I knew how to do, like, we knew how to do this. We all knew
Yeah.
and it was better without him, like so much better. So then we sailed. The trip to the Azores took about 3 weeks. And then from the Azores to Spain, that took about 7 days.
Yep.
We ended in A Coruña, and we stayed there for like 2 weeks, had to do some sail repair. There was a little rip in the mainsail, and then we just like, got got everything ready. We actually met some other sailors who were like, we shared stories about our drunken skipper. Oh yeah, I got his room, I got his cabin, and when I opened the closet to put my stuff away,
Oh, empty
3
bottles
big
everywhere.
bottles actually falling out, like out of a cartoon. It's just insane. And then we were like, oh, that's what he was drinking. Like, what
Yep.
the hell? Because had hid the alcohol, so I was confused as hell. Just because I thought he was going to fall overboard at a few points. He really looked, he was about to. So
Oh, there's absolutely no room. I mean, I'm a huge proponent of having a sundowner, it's like a ritual. But it's one, maybe two, depending on the conditions.
Absolutely. Getting blackout drunk.
Yeah,
like,
you're putting everybody at risk at that point. And
for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
it was a weird experience. And learned a lot of things from that, but was glad.
And that was,
the
first time you were crossing, the first crossing of the Atlantic?
First crossing. And it's a different, because you're going, everyone said, you're going the wrong way, because you're going against the wind. So it's a little bit more of a challenging sail than just like,
well, you have to go really far north and then, then cut over.
Yeah. So it's a little different in that way, and you're healed over for, weeks, honestly, like really, because you're just like beating up and so, yeah, that was interesting. But then to Spain, everything went great. And then we went from Spain to the UK.
How was your weather on that leg?
Oh, that leg was actually the nicest leg. It was like, we waited for a weather window. We were waiting and waiting and waiting. And it was like right on the beam. So it was like blowing like consistently, like between 10 to 20 knots, and it never really picked up above that. So we, obviously going the Bay of Biscay, entering into the Bay of Biscay, like to Spain, when we first arrived, that it got a little bit, a weather system was building, and it got a little bit
that's a
crazy.
gnarly place.
We had to go up north, like we had to go up and around. We kind of had to reroute ourselves a little bit. There was a few moments when we had to like change up obviously you just have to continuously be looking at the wind and the charts and the
Oh
maps
yeah,
and like
yeah.
yeah. So but it definitely, that whole trip really built my confidence and
I'll
in my
bet.
like navigation skills and like ability to do like the weather routing and all that stuff. So it was it was just always obviously a really really proud moment when we pulled into those ports, because we just worked so well as a team together, the three of us, and
Yeah.
it was just incredible. We got so yeah, and then we got to the UK and it was amazing. And I traveled around Europe for a while because I have a Dutch passport. I visited my family. I took a train from England to Holland and stayed with my family for a little while, and went down to a friend in Switzerland. We drove around, and so that was really really awesome.
Well, that's one
And
of the
yeah,
nice parts about, traveling via boat is that when you
yeah,
do get to your destination,
yeah.
you're usually like, all right, what do we got here? Let's go check all
Yeah.
this stuff
I was
out.
like, it took me 2 months to get here. Like, I'm gonna, I'm gonna stay for a bit.
Well,
Um,
and I used to, when I was just doing yacht deliveries, it was always funny to me that I'd spend a month sailing from Antigua to like Mallorca, and then it would take me less than 24 hours to fly
oh
directly
yeah,
back to where I came.
that's
And
the
I'd be
weirdest part.
like, that's kind of strange, isn't it? Weird.
It's so bizarre. Yeah, it's super weird. But yeah, no, then like after that, I helped with another delivery from French Guiana to French Guiana to Grenada. I loved going
Nice.
back to Grenada years later. Like that was amazing. That was honestly one of the toughest sails of my life. It was everything. It was like squalls and like heavy wind and rain and then no wind and then like big swell and then no swell, and it was
Yeah.
like absolute insanity. It was like yeah,
People
and
underestimate the swell that the mid latitudes, the trade
yeah,
winds can build up by the time they get to the Caribbean. Sometimes it's
yeah,
like, holy cow, because those
no,
those winds, they're so consistent, and sometimes they're blowing 18, 22, 25 knots for like a
yeah.
week on end, and that'll build the seas up.
Oh yeah. No, that was an insane sail. It was like about 700 miles, um, and 700 nautical miles, and it was yeah. I mean, it was, but it was successful, and we did it. But there was some, we had to constantly be
Dicey
yeah,
moments, I'm
yeah,
sure.
for sure. And
Well, it's
then
funny. Can I ask you, like, were
yeah,
there, because there's plenty of times on my voyages where I am questioning my life choices. I'm just like, this, what have I done? Why have I gotten myself into yet another one of these things? But that always seems to fade. And I
yeah,
find that the trips where I'm questioning my life choices also tend to be the ones that are most rewarding and
most
gain
rewarding.
the
Yeah,
most experience after they're finished, and
yeah,
they always say there's two types of adventures. There's the ones that are fun while you're doing them, and they're the ones that are fun when you're done with them.
yeah.
And
Yeah. There's
I
definitely
def
moments. Yeah,
yeah,
moments when I'm
I
like,
just
I just think I sometimes I'm like I just laugh randomly and I'm like, do I like this? Do I even like this? Like, do I? I'm not. Why?
oh god, yeah. No, totally. I mean, I it's funny, one of my biggest pet peeves out there is when I'm sailing east to west across an ocean, and you go through a horrible squally night. All the sails on Sparrow are all hank on, so I'm up on the bowsprit getting soaked.
Mm,
You're dealing with
oh
that
my god.
all night long, and then finally you get that little bit of like the half light, and things start to calm down, and all you want to do is go down in your bunk and go to sleep. And I go down there, and within
Yeah.
like a half hour, the sun pokes over the horizon and finds a perfect beam straight into my eyeball. And I'm like, I can't sleep now because the stupid sun is all up in my face and I can't hide from it no matter what.
Yeah.
And then the temperature just starts rising in the cabin. Those are the times. And
Well,
I
it's
actually, I made a personal video one time out there when it was happening, and I had just really reached the end of my rope, and I was like, Jerome, you need to remember this moment, how mad you are, how upset it is, because I know when you get on land, you're going to forget about this moment. You're only going to remember the good times.
yeah,
So just remember.
totally. I mean, I think it's amazing that you're doing all those things solo. To be honest, I am not a solo sailor. I love sharing the journey with other people. I like being able to, in moments when I need to go down to the cabin and I need to like have a rest, to be like,
Hmm.
someone's got it. Someone I trust is got is got it right now.
Oh yeah,
I don't think I'll
definitely.
do solo sailing because I am a people person. I'm a water creature and a people person. Like I need to, yeah, have other people there, like
Well,
crew.
don't worry, I got the solo sailing covered.
You
Sam
do that.
Sam
That is
Holmes and
your
I.
shtick for sure. Yeah.
Well, and it is. I mean, it's kind of funny too, though, because in my life on land, I ran the water sports center at the Bitter End Yacht Club for like a decade. I was 100% immersed in like social activities, planning them, carrying them out, just surrounded by people, and yet I can go from the chaos of that into solo on an ocean for months at a time and be
Yeah.
perfectly content as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I like doing the extremes because anything in the middle, I kind of get a little bit like, come on, we got to take this up a notch in one way
Right.
or another.
Yeah, you're hardcore. No, yeah.
But
But yeah, no.
okay.
So yeah,
And then,
after that one, French Guiana to Grenada, I did. I crewed on a boat. A lot of people probably know is like because they have the big YouTube channel SV Delos, and we met in Panama.
yeah,
They asked me to sail with them from Mexico to French Polynesia, so
nice.
that was going to be my Pacific crossing. I was so excited. I did that with them, and
And is
then
that pretty much a downwinder all the way, or is that like beam reach?
yeah, no, it was pretty much. It was like pretty much downwind for. I mean, there was some moments of definitely like it was on the beam,
Hmm.
and then some moments of like just we just were wing and wing for like days at a time, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
sometimes it would shift a little bit, but there was no point where we were sailing upwind. Like, and even during the
Nice,
doldrums, like when you're supposed to typically have no wind, we had wind. We had hit wind the whole way.
nice.
And that boat is amazing. It's a Super Mermu 53. It's a solid boat. They have it. They've already circumnavigated the world on this boat. Been sailing
Uh
around the
huh.
world for 13 years, and um and it is set up for offshore cruising. Like they've got solar, they've got water on tap. Like whenever you want it, you can have water. There's showers on tap. There's like
Oh wow.
food for months, like not just the weeks. Like we've got just like so all the food you need and like amazing meals, and it was just a great boat to sail on, great boat to cross on. It was fast, it was beautiful, it's just like a wonderful experience.
How many days did that take?
19 and a half days.
Nice.
Yeah, so pretty quick for us. Like I mean, there were some times when I was like on watch and I'm like, woo, we just reached 12 knots. We were going fast, and but it
Yeah,
wasn't like overpowered. It was like in a,
just
yeah,
like a freight train.
just a good boat. Yeah, she's just solid. And then from if we landed in the Marquesas, and then I actually got word from home. Like I had said earlier, my mom had breast cancer. It came back, and I was unsure of like where it was at that point. It looked like it could be bad, and I made the decision to go home to be with her
Uh
and
huh.
my family because I knew I would never regret that. Like the South Pacific will always be there, but I
Yeah.
would never would always regret it. And this was right before we were about to leave for the Tuamotu, so we were going really into nothing, and it was going to be my last opportunity to leave if I needed to. So I left from
Hmm.
Marquesas, and I was at that point I was going to continue on because I wanted to finish crossing the Pacific
Hmm.
back on Elixir, because he actually max crossed at the same time as us. We saw them in the Marquesas, and I was going to join them in Tahiti because he was going to continue on while Delos was going to stay for a year in French Polynesia. So I was going to sail with him to New Zealand. But yeah, plans change and things change. And then I came home, but that's when I decided that I was ready to buy my own boat. And so shortly after arriving back home, being with my family and my mom, I was able to stay here in LA, work on my own boat, my own project. I thought I was going to buy a boat. I talked to you a little bit because I wanted a West Sail 32. It's like my dream.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find a good one in my budget. And I knew that all the ones that I was finding, it was going to cost way too much for me to get it set up. And I think California is a rough place to buy a boat because everything is just really expensive. You know, it's a little bit of a supply and demand thing. Not a lot of people are sailing boats here, leaving them here and selling them here. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah. The
or
East
building them
Coast is
here.
riddled with them. But
Yeah, see, and that's why I should have, but I wasn't able to buy a boat at the East Coast. So then after months, like I looked at, 20 plus boats. I traveled all around the state looking at boats and I was just like, this is not working. I'm going to switch gears. I still, even with, that was 3 years straight of sailing around,
Mhm.
crossing those oceans and doing those passages and learning and sailing on other people's boats. I still had so much to learn about owning a boat. So I decided to just find an inexpensive, small boat that I could start my journey on and learn how to be a captain. And so I found on Facebook Marketplace this Catalina 25 from 1981. I bought it for $2,500.
Nice.
And I was like, I could also use this as a, little escape from being home. It could be like my little, my space on the water because my family lives far from the water. So I wanted to have my spot on the ocean and, have that. And so now it's been a year since I bought that boat and I have been sailing it for the past 4 months, 5 months, 4 months. But like it took me, it took me a really long time to get it ready to sail.
Yeah.
There was a lot that I had to fix, and it just uncovered the longer I had it, it just uncovered more and more issues with the boat that I had to fix, and it was like having to make the money to do those repairs while like trying to survive living in LA because it's so expensive here. And um yeah, so it was just a lot of all of that, a long project, long process. And then every time I thought it was ready, I would go out for a sail to test things out and then something would go
Break
wrong
something.
and then I'd have to fix it. I was like, that happened every time. I'm like, when is this going to end? And then finally I tried to sail to Catalina in May. Oh, actually, I guess I've been sailing it now for like five months. So five and a half months. I don't know,
Okay.
but it's not consistently because it's been like a sail and then fix it, and then a sail and then fix.
And
So
then fix it.
yeah, I tried to sail to Catalina with a friend who had never sailed before, and we ended up leaving kind of later in the day, and it turned into night, and we were halfway there, and it got dark, and then like the seasickness hit, and like I didn't have a toilet at that time, and there was like some intestinal issues with my crew.
Oh
And then like
no.
and there was some riding of the bucket, and I was like,
Oh,
this is
the
really bad.
worst.
And I was like,
Yeah.
this is like worst case scenario. And so and then my rudder was like not, the pegs weren't staying in. I don't have, it's just there
See,
was
and
just
that's
thing.
scary. That's
Yeah,
where it
and
gets like,
no. And then my engine was also, it was an older engine that I had on there, and it was like not reliable if things were gonna go wrong. And so then in that moment, I was like, you know what? He's miserable. I don't feel completely comfortable with a ride, like with being sailing the
this
rest
is
of the way.
unsafe. We got to go
So
back.
yeah, I was like, you know what? Best to just turn around now, And so we turned around and got back to the marina at like um 4 a.m. But actually, when we got back to the marina, this engine gave me so much troubles. I was tacking in and out of inside the breakwater, just tacking back and forth for like an hour, but trying to get the engine started. Just
Oh,
like
jeez.
pulling, doing everything I could. Finally got it started and then pulled into the slip, and I just laughed. I was like, oh my God. I have so much more work I need to do before I go to Catalina. So then, yeah, that was in May, and I just did my first trip in beginning of September. So
Wow. Well, congratulations on
thanks.
finally making it out
Oh, it
there.
was so worth it, and it was incredible. It was. We stayed for a week, and I went with yeah, three of my closest girlfriends. Like this girl, and they one girl's we did. There was three of us who sailed there, and then one of my friends took the ferry back, and then me and my friend Jimena, who actually sailed with me to Colombia, she says she kept saying this is like her saying she's like I am boat life. Like she is boat life. She loves it. She lives it. She is
Nice.
obsessed. So she just stayed with me there for a week. We were just living our best lives, like cooking good food, swimming, snorkeling, sailing to different spots, and then and then I got I had to leave. We had to leave. We would have stayed longer, but I obviously got invited on that Turkey trip, so sailed.
Right.
Another friend came on the ferry, and then she joined us for a couple days or 2 3 days, and then we all sailed back together. And then I literally just like hopped on a flight, went to Turkey, and yeah, and so now I'm back
Jet
here.
setting. Yeah. Well, and I mean, isn't that the point of all this? To just have fun and just spend our
Yes.
time wisely like that.
Totally. I think it's like someone just asked me yesterday, like, what's my advice for, you know, fixing up a boat, because there's times when she was like, I feel overwhelmed with my project. And I was just like, don't forget to laugh and have fun with it and
Yeah.
take a step back if you need to, but just be creative with it and just remember why you love it and you enjoy it. Don't let the hard times, you know, get you down and make you forget why you love this. It's just, if you need to take a step back, you should. And I had to do that at multiple times, and I don't feel guilty or bad about that. Yes, it took me longer than I thought it would, but that's a part of life. Like, it's all part of it.
Very, very wise words, I will
Oh,
say.
thank you.
It really is. It really is. I mean, these are a lot of the subjects that I talk to people about, and I try and explain through my own experiences, because I can't. It's so funny that you talk about laughing, because that has helped me through so many times where if I had any normal brain, I should be screaming and yelling profanities left, right, and center.
No, that's
Instead,
not normal.
I got a big smile on my face, and I'm just
I know.
laughing that I'm soaking wet, I'm cold, I'm in the middle of an ocean, and it's just
Yeah.
catastrophe. I mean,
I
I
know.
don't know.
Seriously, when I look back at all the craziest moments, I actually just burst out into laughter. Like,
Yeah,
you
right.
have to find humor in it, like, because it is funny. You're like, oh, I did this to myself,
Well,
like,
every once in a while, I'll meet up with people, and they've peeled through like my Instagram far enough back that it's all the around the world stuff, and some of those clips, and they're like, Jerome, you got to watch this again and explain to me what was going on in your head. And it's me just being a goofball with a giant beard, and I've been out at sea for 200 something
yeah,
days, and
yeah,
just trying to have fun still, and
yeah.
I think that's a real big key. Well, on a side note, I just want to say I love the colors that you've chosen with the boat.
Oh,
As
thank
someone
you.
who painted the decks of a West Sail bright yellow,
Yeah.
because I think living in a lot of color is a very good thing.
Oh, yeah.
I
I
love
love
the
that.
blue. And did
Thank
you do
you.
yellow cushions down below?
No, the cushions are actually blue as well.
They're blue as well. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. That's no, Total Boat. That paint is from them, and it is like amazing how
Dude, yeah, you got
how
to
good
live
it
in those
was. Like,
vibrant
they've
colors.
got the good colors, and like, yeah, I'm super happy with how it turned out. I just like did not think that it was going to be that good. It was my first time painting, obviously a boat. Like, I painted many,
You did a
lots of
great
wood and
job.
walls. But yeah, no, thank you. I'm almost like so happy. It took me 2 days to just tape everything, So,
Oh
and then
yeah,
it
yeah,
took
yeah.
me, so the whole painting process took me over a week. Of like tape and actually over a week of tape and paint and rollers and this and so mixing it and that. So yeah, it was a long process, but I'm super happy with the result.
It looks, yeah, like I said, it looks really good. Funny story. There was in 2020, I think, I was planning to go and circumnavigate the Americas through the Northwest Passage, and I'm up in Rockland, Maine, in the boatyard. I'm kind of half working for them and half working on the boat, getting it ready. And I ordered this bottom paint, and it was supposed to be red, just like normal. I ended up getting like hot pink bottom paint. And
Yes,
obviously I'm not going to take it back. So I slap it on the bottom
oh
of the
my
boat,
God.
and they would not let me pass by it without comment. I loved it. I
I
thought it
would
looked
die for
great.
that. I would love that. That's amazing. I think it's incredible. I know. I used to be afraid. Like I used to be. I think when I was younger, because I was always been like a little bit of a tomboy. I'm like, oh, they don't like girly things. Like I don't like pink. But now I'm like, I love pink. I love color. I've like fully embraced into this like, these like that part of like not, yeah, what, who cares, if
Yeah.
bright colors make you so happy and are so beautiful to look at. We love all these colors under the sea and in nature and
Yeah.
everything, and so we should live with them. Yeah.
Now, I when I'm downwinding out in the ocean and I've got those bright yellow decks, and they're contrasted by the beautiful electric blue deep water ocean. Like I love that. It looks to
Yeah.
me, I'm just like it makes me smile. And I can remember though, some of the first videos I put out, some of the comments were like, "Who pissed on your decks, man?" And I was like,
Oh my god,
"Whoa, whoa, easy, guys,
people are
come on."
wild.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
on. Obviously, I will put links to like your TikTok and Instagram and YouTube in the
Thank you. Yeah.
description and stuff like that. But if there's anything you want to shout out, now would be the time.
No, I think that's, yeah. YouTube I'm going to be posting more on there. I want to do some long form content. So I'm excited for that like journey. And yeah, so no, thank you for having me on. I've definitely been so interested in your, following what you've been doing over the years. And so it's really cool to have talked and like, yeah. So
Well, sailors, you
I
get a
know.
couple sailors together, and it can
Yeah, it
go
was
on and
fun. That
on.
was a fun conversation. So
Absolutely. Well, and hopefully we'll be able to do it again. And if you know other people that you think would be fun to have on the show, just shoot them
yes,
a little DM one day, and they can hit me right up as well. Because
for sure.
I love just getting other people's take on a lot of these experiences, the good, the bad, all of it.
Yeah, definitely.
All
Well,
right.
thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Yeah,
Have a good one.
absolutely. Safe sailing.
Thank you. You too.